Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely dissect the relentless, absolutely sensory-heavy curriculum of a 60-minute toddler digital media loop. Now, if you've ever walked past a screen displaying, bright colors, bouncing shapes, and a narrator just cheering at the top of their lungs, you've definitely witnessed this phenomenon. But today, we're not just going to passively look at it, we're going to break it all down. We're looking specifically at a really fascinating piece of source material from a channel called Super Crazy Kids. Our goal? To figure out exactly how this massive amount of information is packaged, paced, and beamed directly into the youngest developing minds.
Okay, let's dive right in, because this absurdly enthusiastic greeting you're seeing completely sets the tone for an entire hour of rapid-fire learning. Right out of the gate, the narrator isn't just, saying a simple hello. They are exuding a stratospheric level of energy. Phrases like, wow, look at this place, awesome, combined with the delightfully weird, hey, bananas, immediately grab a toddler's attention, right? It establishes this space that feels safe, a little unpredictable, and highly charged. The host is basically acting as this hyper-energetic tour guide, signaling right away that the learning we're about to do isn't a chore, it's an adventure.
And that brings us to the core question of our explainer today. What exactly does a baby learn in a 60-minute digital loop? I mean, when you first listen to the source material, it literally sounds like an absolute avalanche of noise. Colors, animals, vehicles, just overlapping cheers. It's a lot. But when we actually strip away that hyperactive delivery and look closely at the raw data being presented, we can unpack this seemingly chaotic audio and reveal a highly structured, honestly fascinating educational journey. There's an entire measurable curriculum just hiding right there in plain sight.
So, let's start by looking at the basic building blocks of early cognition.
Like any traditional early childhood curriculum, this starts by classifying the world into manageable buckets. And our digital loop is absolutely no exception. But just look at the sheer volume of categories introduced all at once. They're sneaking in complex terms like cyan and trapezoid right alongside your standard colors and shapes. The source material doesn't just stick to the basics. It rapidly cycles through red, blue, and pink, sure, but then casually drops a specific technical color like cyan right into the mix. It fully expects the toddler's brain to absorb the nuanced difference between light blue and cyan without missing a single beat, moving seamlessly right into counting to 10 and running through the alphabet.
And it absolutely doesn't stop at circles and squares. The curriculum rapidly introduces complex geometry and symbols. Think pentagons, drops, crosses. This is a fascinating pedagogical choice. By treating a multi-sided polygon like a trapezoid with the exact same weight and casual tone as a simple circle, the content essentially normalizes advanced vocabulary. It assumes complete, absolute competence from the toddler watching.
Then, of course, we have the number 26. It relentlessly hammers home all 26 letters of the alphabet, ensuring that foundational knowledge is entirely covered. Throughout the 60 minutes, the classic alphabet song is deployed multiple times. It acts as this sort of anchor, a familiar, rhythmic break from the rapid-fire shape and color identification. The source material repeats A through Z over and over to make absolutely sure the ultimate building block of language is permanently etched into the viewer's memory.
Next up, discovering the physical world. Let's see how the loop builds from those abstract basics directly into identifying tangible items. So once the child is thoroughly warmed up with all those colors and numbers, the digital loop shifts gears. It takes all of that cognitive processing speed we just built up and applies it to real-world objects. The source material rapidly groups familiar farm animals and fruits, things a toddler might actually see in a picture book or sitting on their kitchen table. We get the standard cow, pig, horse, apple, banana. But then, completely true to its rapid-fire nature, it throws in total curveballs, a camel, a shrimp. Suddenly, the toddler is transported from a basic farm setting straight into a marine biology lesson. The juxtaposition is a little jarring for an adult, but for a toddler, it's just another fascinating data point they get to categorize.
And this brilliantly illustrates the wild escalation in difficulty here. I mean, 1 minute toddlers are pointing at a cow, and the next they are tasked with identifying a Spinosaurus, an Ankylosaurus, or a Stegosaurus. Think about the cognitive leap required for that. A cow is a simple monosyllabic word for a very common animal. A Spinosaurus, that's a 4-syllable prehistoric carnivore. Yet the digital loop treats them exactly the same, feeding the child's mind this highly specialized vocabulary at breakneck speed.
Now we enter abstract time and geography. From physical animals, the curriculum makes a massive, surprising leap into highly advanced spatial and temporal concepts.
If shapes and farm animals were the foundation, we're basically entering the masterclass of the toddler curriculum right now. The source material suddenly pivots away from objects you can touch and see
demanding that the child grasp invisible, abstract constructs. The host rapid fires through the structure of human time, sequencing the days of the week sequentially from Sunday all the way through the work week to Friday and right into the weekend. For a toddler, whose only real concept of time is usually now or later, laying out a structured, repeating 7-day cycle is a massive cognitive download. It introduces the exact framework that adults use to organize their entire existence.
And that's immediately followed by a high-speed sprint through the months of the year, expanding the child's concept of time even further. The narrator just charges forward, dropping January, February, March, right up through the middle of the year and beyond. It demands the child scale their understanding from just a single day up to a full annual cycle.
So here's the crucial point. This content fully expects toddlers to digest geographic data as advanced as the Southern Ocean and Antarctica. We aren't just saying the world is round here. The narrator is systematically naming all 7 continents and mapping out the major oceanic bodies, distinctly separating the North Atlantic from the South Atlantic. Guys, this is middle school geography, and it's aggressively compressed and beamed directly to a toddler in the exact same tone used to identify a yellow square. It's wild.
Finally, let's talk about the pedagogy of praise, which is essentially the psychological glue holding all this chaotic, escalating information together.
Because really, how on earth does a digital medium keep a squirming toddler engaged through an entire hour of cyan trapezoids, spinosaurs, and the Southern Ocean? Well, it all comes down to a highly calculated emotional strategy. The source material relies on a relentless 3-step loop to keep the viewer locked in: prompt, identify, and praise. First, the narrator introduces a mysterious new item and specifically asks the child for help, saying things like, "What do you think?" Next, the object gets identified. And finally, and this is the most important part, the narrator delivers massive, effusive praise. This creates a continuous dopamine loop. The child feels needed, they get the answer, and boom, they are instantly rewarded.
And let's actually look at the quality of that reward. The host doesn't settle for a simple, "good job." Oh no, they opt to use massive, empowering vocabulary like magnificent. Just like the curriculum upgrades basic shapes to trapezoids, the praise itself gets a major upgrade. By using these dramatic, multisyllabic words of affirmation, the narrator makes the toddler feel like they've just solved a grand, monumental puzzle, even if all they did was point at a red ball. They elevate the child's self-esteem to incredible heights, directly calling them a genius just for identifying a color or an animal. Think about the psychological impact of having an enthusiastically happy voice repeatedly tell you, "You are genius." It builds supreme confidence, for sure. The content is essentially training the child's brain to associate learning vast amounts of data with an overwhelming, potent sense of personal pride and intellect.
They even go as far as building a parasocial bond. They'll thank the toddler and pretend they genuinely needed their help to finish the lesson, using phrases like, "and I couldn't have done it without you." This totally breaks the fourth wall. The child isn't just passively watching a screen anymore, they are conceptually collaborating with the host. This brilliant illusion of teamwork practically guarantees that the toddler feels a sense of loyalty and obligation to keep watching, to keep helping their digital friends sort out all these shapes and dinosaurs.
All of this leaves us with a pretty critical question to ponder regarding the actual educational value and the psychological impact of this modern digital diet. In a world of rapid-fire digital data and endless praise loops, what is actually sticking in a toddler's mind? Are they truly grasping the difference between the Indian and Arctic Oceans, or are they simply getting addicted to the dopamine rush of being called a magnificent genius every 30 seconds? It's a truly fascinating look into modern early childhood consumption, and I hope this explainer has given you a completely new perspective on what's really happening behind the screen. Thank you so much for joining me, and as always, keep questioning what you see.